Cool. What's up guys, it's Devin here with Make Anything, and this is my alien garden, or at least the beginning of it. So I finally had time to get back into VR and do some virtual reality 3D modeling, which is one of my most favorite ways to make 3D models, and it's especially fun to make really organic, flowy designs. So I thought it would be perfect to make some crazy science fiction type plants. And these were actually pretty quick, and I want to show you all the steps of making this from beginning to end, so that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to make something similar to this plant, but I want to make it bigger, I want to make it better, so yeah, let's get right to it. So here we are in Gravity Sketch, and of course I left the mouse on the screen, so let's just camouflage that for the rest of the video. Sorry for that blotch that's going to be there. But anyways, this is Gravity Sketch. If you guys have watched my VR sculpting videos, this is pretty much my favorite sculpting app for the HTC Vive. And I'm gonna start out my plant with some variable width strokes. And I have the pressure setting on so that I can pull the trigger and change the thickness of the strokes. But I'm actually gonna end up going in and editing the individual control points of my stroke. So that's really where I'm gonna get the correct shape. So the way I designed this plant is to have this kind of thin base, and then as it goes up, it turns into this big bulbous tip, and I'm just gonna have that waving its way upward. And I'm kind of just trying to be organic, trying to have fun and come up with this cool wavy pattern. And with this particular plant, I'm just gonna kind of keep repeating that pattern of these individual parts and have them branch out from each other and grow up that way. And while I'm mostly going for aesthetics here, trying to sculpt it in a way that looks really cool and can kind of be viewed from many angles, I'm also considering the constraints of 3D printing. So as I'm adding these, I gotta make sure that I'm not curving them too much. I'm trying to keep the overhangs underneath 45 degrees. That way I can print it without support material on a standard FDM printer, and it should work out. And of course, I wanna make sure that the stalks are thick enough so that I can print it and it won't snap while it's printing or afterwards. I want this to look dainty and kind of fragile without actually being too fragile. This one I'm probably gonna print rather large, so it's okay for those stalks to be pretty thin because I'm gonna print it so big that they will be sturdy enough when it's printed out. I'll kind of have a main stalk here and have all the other pieces branch out from that, and that'll give it that tree-like look that a lot of plants have. From here on out, it's pretty repetitive. I'm just creating similar stalks. I could even copy them and then just edit the control points to make each one look different. And I'm arranging them, considering what's around it and trying to make them kind of weave around each other and just look cool. All right, at this point, I think it looks really good. I like the overall look of this plant. So now I just have to make the pot for the plant to sit in. And I am doing pots for these, but you know, you could also just make it a mound of dirt or something, or you can actually just print this out as is and stick it in a pot or a mound of dirt. But in this case, I'm gonna model a quick little vase slash pot. And that's really easy with this other tool that Gravity Sketch has, which lets me draw kind of revolved forms around this axis that I set here. So I'll kind of have the axis aligned with the plant, and just like with the strokes, I can go in and control each individual control point and get really technical with how I want my vase to look. So there we go. I'm gonna make sure to close this up all the way, that way it's capped on the top and bottom, because I wanna make a solid thing here that I'm gonna 3D print. And then I'm actually gonna add some control points at the top to give this a bit of a lip. So I'll kind of bring these control points in and dip it down, and that'll give me a kind of raised edge so that I can fill this pot with some kind of filler and make it look even cooler. All right, there we have it. Looks pretty good. Pretty quick thing I did right there. And now we're just gonna go ahead and save this out and make it a little easier to 3D print. Before I export this, I'm just gonna bring the pot down a bit because I want to be able to separate them into two different objects. And then I'll export that as an OBJ file. Now I can open up that file in Microsoft 3D Builder, and I'll just quickly repair it. And before I orient it, I'm actually gonna scale it up. So you can see there's a grid here with a rough ruler. I'm not going for any super precise measurements, so I'll just kind of eyeball it. But I definitely want it to be taller. For now, let's go ahead and make it like 200 millimeters tall. And who knows, maybe I'll go bigger, but this is a good estimate for how big I want it to be. So we've got it sized up, and now we want to go ahead and rotate this whole model so that it's standing up. So I'll kind of just manipulate these points, move it into place, and have it straight as I can. And then to actually get it perfectly oriented, I can use this settle tool, which basically simulates gravity and has the pot stand straight. All right, so now we have the two plants. They're in their separate colors. And I'm noticing this kind of has some weird twists that I kind of want to deal with. And maybe just the polygons on this plant are a little too regular. So first I'm going to ungroup these two, and it's easy to do since they're separated. And now I can select this, and let's see what happens if I try to smooth it out. Well, it doesn't really do too much. It still leaves those weird edges right here. So let's go back and let's actually simplify it first. So I'll hit the simplify tool, and that'll kind of break it up. It is doing some weird pinching thing right here, so I'm going to bring that slider down to the point where it doesn't have any weird artifacts like that, but it's still rather simplified. So it looks like right here is where I want to be. So we'll go ahead and accept that and reduce those faces. And now I'm actually gonna go and use the smooth tool again and bring back in some faces, but since I reduced it and re-smoothed it, those faces are a little less regular and a little more organic. Of course, not really organic, but you know, I just kind of like the way it looks. You can do it however you want. Great, so I have everything looking the way I want it to. Now I just need to create some kind of joint so that I can connect this plant to the pot. So first I'll bring the plant to the side here, and then I'm going to use the split tool to cut the bottom off to make it flat. The next thing I want to do is use this extrude down tool and have it extrude that flat face down so that it basically creates this straight extrusion that I can use as a peg to stick into that vase. So now I'll bring this back into position so that the peg part is just above that vase, and you can see that it's white, so I can actually tell where it starts extruding straight down. And I'm gonna go ahead and position it. I'll look at it from all the different angles to make sure it looks centered. All right, that looks good. So now it's time to put the hole in the vase so that the peg on that plant fits right into that. So there's actually a pretty simple little trick that you can do to make a nice peg that lets you fit that plant in quite easily. And what I'm gonna do is select just the plant part, and I'm gonna use Control X to cut it away, but it's stored in my clipboard. Now I can paste it, and I'm gonna scale that up by 5% or so, maybe 106. And now, making sure that it's centered again, I'm gonna go ahead and just hit that subtract button. And what that does is subtract the form from the vase. Now I can control paste the plant again in its original scale, and there we go, we've got a good fixture. And because I scaled up the one that I subtracted from the vase, there's a little bit of clearance so that the two parts can slide together nice and easily. That's about it. So now we can just go ahead and cut away the vase and save that as an STL, so we get an STL of just the plant. And then I'll undo that, bring back the vase, delete the plant, and save an STL of just the pot. All right, so the files are pretty much good to go. We'll slice them up in Simplify 3D and then send them to print. Here's the model printing out, and I actually scaled this up 200% so that I can really take advantage of the build volume on this TiVo little monster 3D printer that I'm testing out. So despite its name, this is actually a really large Delta printer. And as you can see, I've got that wide base on the bottom of this print. And that's a raft that I created so that this plant wouldn't get knocked over while I'm printing. Here's the end result, and it is a bit stringy because this is my first real print on this TiVo little monster, so I do have to work on my retraction settings, but overall, I just think it came out fantastic. To clean up those strings, a lot of people will use a heat gun to quickly melt them away, or a wire brush to scrape them off, but with a really delicate model like this, I'm just going to use the back of my X-Acto blade and carefully scrape it off that way. Here's the pot. It's a simple model, so it printed out flawlessly on my i3 Mega. And if my measurements were correct, these two should just fit right together. There we go. Finally, just to make things a little more interesting, we're gonna fill up these pots with a little bit of filler. And I realized that the silica beads inside of these desiccant packs that come with all my printing filament actually look really cool. So as you can see, they're kind of clearish white beads that stand out on this black vase really well. But with the large plant that we modeled today, we have a white vase. So I decided to try to color these beads. And I'm gonna use this Rit Dye More synthetic dye in this daffodil yellow. Silica isn't actually listed as one of the things that you can dye with this, but it's a really strong concentrated dye, and those silica beads are made to absorb moisture. So I'm hoping they'll absorb the dye along with this boiling water. So I'll add that water, mix it in, and once it's all cooled down, I'm gonna go ahead and drain the excess liquid so that I'm left with just those colorized silica beads. And as you can see, they didn't turn super bright yellow, but they definitely are yellow, and it actually looks pretty perfect with my new alien plant. I actually think this kind of transparent yellow is the perfect complement to the teal plant and the white vase. All right, well, there it is, our latest alien plant, potted, ready to be displayed wherever it ends up. And I'm really excited with how this came out. I know very few people have access to both 3D printers and virtual reality right now, but this is a really fun project to do with those tools. I'm gonna keep making these plants because I think they're so cool. I'll definitely be selling them in my store, and as always, you can visit my page on My Mini Factory and download all these files for free and print them for yourself. Whether or not you do have the tools to make this yourself, I hope you at least had a fun time watching it. I hope it inspired you in one way or another to make some cool stuff of your own. So that's it for now. Until next time, I'm Devin. This is Make Anything. Don't forget to stay inspired.